Now, news from Saudi Arabia has caught our attention today as messaging services like Skype, WhatsApp and Viber face being banned there. The Saudi telecoms regulator wants a way of monitoring these services, and it is threatened to ban them if it cannot do so. The free services are hugely popular in Saudi Arabia, which did attempt to ban BlackBerry messaging in 2010. Let's go live now to Lucy Hawkins, who's in the World's newsroom today. It sounds like an extreme idea, Lucy, but is this a real threat?
This has become a huge story in Saudi, Michelle, because this is something I learnt today for the first time. Social media has spread like wildfire in Saudi Arabia. You can understand the reasons behind that. But there are things like it's got the highest uptake of Twitter in the world. So people there are really agitated about what is happening or these developments with the regulators. With me is Hadya Alalawi, who is a journalist at BBC Arabic, and Mark Gregory, who is our technology correspondent. Hadya, what has been the reaction in Saudi Arabia to this plan?
There's been different reactions actually on blogs and by the media and by people. Some of them are actually supporting the move to block Skype and Viber and WhatsApp. They're saying that it will stop people from misusing it, and they're saying it's a good way for the security, for the government to stay in control of the security of what's happening, especially after the Arab Spring. They're kind of worried about things kicking off in Saudi Arabia now at the time, so they're thinking that's a good way of the government to keep in track of any possible terrorist activities in the country. Some of them are actually not supporting it. They're saying that this way they can't communicate with their friends, their family, especially workers who came from abroad. They're saying, how are we going to, find other, cheap ways of talking to our family?
Mark, do we know who's behind it all?
Well, we've kind of been here before in 2010 when the authorities in Saudi, but also the United Arab Emirates, had a go at getting BlackBerry instant messaging services banned. And that was very much for security reasons. They were worried about who might be using those services in the form of militant groups, which, because the messages are encrypted, meant that all sorts of communications that security services would like to have intercepted couldn't be intercepted. Now, of course, the front in these things is social media, so they're having a go at these things. Having said that, though, and so it's likely that it comes from the security services. Having said that, though, some regular telecommunications companies have a financial interest in seeing these free apps banned, because it means people will have to be using paid-for text messages or international phone calls instead to stay in touch with their loved ones, which means more revenue for the regular communications companies.
Quite a few people have been getting in touch with us about this, and those views, Michelle, have been reflected. Let's take a look at some of them. Bilal contacted us from Pakistan saying, I'm an expat, I live in Saudi Arabia. This is going to be a real setback for expats, as Hadya was saying. These services enable us to talk to our families back in our country every day. And Ramnath in India says, why should someone be so worried about monitoring unless you are a terrorist? Here in India, BB Messenger is monitored along with many others. Hadya, it's fascinating to think that Saudi only got the internet back in 1999.
Yes.
But as I was mentioning at the beginning, they have embraced social media like no other country.
Yes. The reason for that is because social media has provided some sort of like a free forum for people to express their opinions, and that's something unprecedented in Saudi Arabia, because it's such a reserved culture and such a reserved place. Religious figures actually play a big role in this. They kind of like always refer back to the Islam and the rules of Islam, kind of like stopping people from, expressing certain opinions. But it's been kind of widely used in Saudi Arabia, social media, especially after the Arab Spring.
Okay, thank you both very much for joining us. As Mark was telling me a little bit earlier, Michelle, though, people will always find a way. They may ban it now, but it's very hard to stop people from finding and downloading apps if they decide that's what they want to do.
Yeah, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. Thanks very much, Lucy Hawkins there.